Okay, if you don't have any questions, we'll just get on straight on with it. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, just a bit of housekeeping. When you are speaking, I'm going to be completely silent, because otherwise it's difficult to for the computer to pick up the sound. So that's a bit weird, because usually the person you're speaking to says something back, but I'm going to be silent. I'm going to nod my head, which means I'm listening. I am listening, but I'm going to be completely silent. So that's a bit weird. Okay, the first question then is what your own personal tradition. I'm asking because some people have multiple traditions. I mean, so where do you come from in this?
In the Zen Soto tradition?
Yes, but in
You mean
your
the lineage?
yeah. Yeah.
It's from Nishijima lineage. But as most Western lineage, it's very much influenced or inspired by Kodo Sawaki, or on Taiji lineage. And even though I'm in the direct lineage of Nishijima, Chodo Cross, Pierre Taiguchi Turlure, all my time in Japan, I was going a lot to Fujita Dojo in Hayama, which is Kodo Sawaki Uchiyama direct lineage. So I also have both in my history.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question is, how do you understand mindfulness? And not particularly mindfulness is eating, but how would you define mindfulness?
I don't understand it. That's clearly the thing that I could say. I don't understand it, because for me, I don't know what we're talking about. Theravada, most observation, attention practice. Are we talking about Kabat-Zinn, which I don't know exactly what it is, but kind of a methodology also of observation? Are we talking about samadhi, that like completely feeling, like a non-object, subject completion? So I don't know what it is. I could say what once shared with me Fujita, that he could understand mindfulness, or what he's teaching through Zen is mindfulness without mind. That I can understand. So I'm not able to define mindfulness, although I understood that it was kind of a metamorphosis of a secular Buddhism attempt to secularize all this wisdom that we feel we have in Buddhism. But I feel we are at the baby steps of it, because for now we just put everything in the bag, and I feel that when people speak about mindfulness, everybody knows what they're talking about, but I'm not sure it's the same thing. And so I think I had also a discussion with Stefan Batchelor and Martin with that. I feel that in the next years, we might have, as in Buddhism, like this basic body that basically we want to be in this communion of reality. We want to experience the embodiment of the symbiotic intra-reality. And so that would be the precept of the mindfulness, as we have the Four Noble Truths and the Eight Octuple Trail. But then, as Buddhism, we would have mindfulness without mind. I don't know the others. Maybe some more concentrated observation, as it's already there. So I could imagine, I could talk what it could be, what I feel it could be, the Soto Zen secular mindfulness without mind. And it's we don't need to actualize very much, I feel, in our tradition. It's just simply shikantaza, you know, so the just simply um, doing, being present 100% in what we do without searching anything. So without even trying to master um, whatever we think we should master in order to arrive somewhere, because basically we're already there and we don't know it.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Jon Kabat-Zinn, he has defined mindfulness as awareness without judgment. Would you agree with that?
Of course, of course. And it links to um, what Bernie Glassman, I think, the way he never said it directly as I know, but the way I see it, he expressed through the 3 pillars of Zen Peacemaker the Shikantaza, more exotic term, as not prejudging, bearing witness, and from that something arise. But we don't look directly to attain this arisement, and we usually won't be aware of it. So aware without judgment, including our own awakening or whatever. So that's make it out of the picture. And I think this is what I feel could be a little bit problematic in mindfulness, as I think it is perceived, which I'm not sure it's true, is that it's nourished the utilitarist paradigm that the anthropos, or era has been created. So without us realizing it, we could, through the intention of opening another way to be with the world, just reproducing the same productivity of kind of that self-development kind of started. Not saying that this is not bad, as maybe there is a first step where we need to work on ourselves to kind of being able to, but at one point, this is not it in the Buddhist sense, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next question then is, how do you understand mindful eating?
Well, I read the I guess in terms of like we're part of the history, so the history is being written at the same time as we're living it. So for me, so far, who created this mindful eating? It's John Chosenbei, if I'm correct. So I read her book. And I think it's really, even though she is Zen teacher, I think her book specifically, and I think I read it already a long time ago, but she mentioned it specifically. I felt it more in the lineage, I would say, the direct therapeutical lineage of Kabat-Zinn mindfulness.
Well, she's a medical doctor, isn't she?
Right. And so this book for me was more from the perspective of a therapeutical addressing bulimia problem, compulsive eating problem, through a methodology of Kabat-Zinn mindfulness. So it's really it's a methodology trying to give space, to acknowledge the when we want to eat, how do you say this?
The hunger.
The hunger, the 7 hunger defined. So there is a read stages in methodology. So again, I think it's fantastic, as Kabat-Zinn mindfulness is, like when people are faced with such dramatic food problem, it's a blessing to have something which is not about dietic, which is not something about reducing this and that. So it's a method, but for me, this is mindful eating. and it's, I would say, all, yes, completely different. Well, completely. Of course, there are bridges, but from the non-methodology, so we have a methodology, and I would say that Shojin Yori practice is the non-methodological side of it.
So, in your view, then, secular mindful eating is a secular thing that is coming into the Buddhist tradition. So the secular is feeding into the Buddhist tradition. Would you say that's fair? So I mean, because when you look at people like Dogen, obviously spoke a lot about food and eating, but it was all about community. It wasn't about losing weight or health or blood pressure. But it's now when I read books from the Korean tradition, those things are starting to come into the Buddhist tradition. What you are saying perhaps is that those things are coming from the Western secular tradition into Buddhism and not the other way around. Is that fair?
You mean like mindful eating?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But it could come from the Buddhist tradition, but not from, as I feel, not directly, even though I know Kabat-Zinn has been influenced by Korean Zen. And so it's very difficult to, I make myself being very dualistic and it's not my intent. However, yes, I feel that the mindful eating that we're talking about is an attempt to put Buddhist principle of a kind of benevolence identity, which is not all about ourselves. So there is that, which could come from the Buddhist principles in general, but as a methodological, which is trying to arrive to being at ease with your food, which is not the purpose, as you said, of the Buddhist food practice. Yes, it's coming from the secular world. Yeah, but I feel that yeah, go ahead.
No, it's great. Thank you very much. Okay. So we've talked about it a little bit. What informs the Japanese or your tradition of mindful eating? Because we've already talked about how Dogen saw it a bit. I don't know whether you know how much you know about Dogen, or so do these ideas come from? Because if you look at some of the sutras, the Pali sutras, they'll talk about they'll have exercises like noticing how disgusting your food is, and making food quite revolting, and then thinking about it coming out the other end in the toilet, and things like that.
Yeah, well, no.
No, not the Zen tradition, but the Pali tradition, the Theravada, but we'll be focusing on stuff like that. So I was just wondering, do you have any information or do you have any ideas of where these ideas come from?
Oh yeah, of course I know. You just said it. Soto Zen is Dogen. It was founded by Dogen, so it's all come from Dogen. So it is mostly expressed in the second text he wrote, which is in the Ei Shingi, as you said, because it's not only the community, but it's activated through the community, and not only the community of people, but the community of the ingredients which are coming from here and which going back to the plant. So it's really embedded in the community. So it's, yeah, of course, it's the Tenzo Kyokun, and it's also the Fukushu Hampo. It's all the practice of the Oryoki, which is again the circularity of food. It's all about the self, which is diluted, embodied in the circularity, where you don't know if you, as a Tenzo, who you are giving to the people because you received the ingredient, and actually you existing because you cook for the people. So then it's just the ending circle we have of Zen. So it's completely Dogen, but before Dogen, we know it's it's from the Chan, maybe well, I wouldn't go so much in this because I'm not so much literate other than my little thing in history of Chan. But I feel we can say without saying too much stupidity that the Chan, the Buddhism, when you arrive in China, had through the semantic, through the translation, even being completely mixed with Taoism, which give with the 5 elements uh, a way of addressing the food already from the beginning as a self, as a self subject. And but also it's interesting because yeah, then after it's detailed, but because I was surprised, I thought that the 6 states, you know, we talk about, we said that, I don't know if it's directly related to what I said, but anyway, that come to my mind, so I'm just saying it. Saying that all this coming, let's say, from Dogen or from the Chan, I was really surprised, and especially when I was in the working with Tenzos in Japan, you know, I asked, we hear a lot about the 6th step, the 6th savor, and we often confuse it with umami. So it's not umami, it's awami, the non-taste, the neutral taste. And because they often say, they claim that it's the Zen taste, you know, like all cooking, all Buddhism have a cooking tradition, and none of them are using, let's say, garlic for the reason we know, which are a little bit different also in them cooking. But however, they have this common thing. But the Zen cooking, the Shojin Yori, have the 6th savor, which is the Zen thing. And actually, I was really surprised that it's not, because of course it's you find it in the Lankavatara Sutra, you know, that says if you, well, anyway, it's mentioned.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not from Dogen. But what I feel is like through the Chan, through the 5 elements, also through the diotherapy, well, through the Chinese cosmogony of colors, texture, etc., they kind of put it at the center, and kind of make it an embodiment of the middle way in some way. Like, you know, you need all the extreme, you need all the good and bad, all the disgusting and the wonderful to make the one taste, which could be so. Anyway, so it's not so it's going far, basically.
And also in Japan, they have the tea ceremony, which becomes a very important thing as well. That
it's coming from the Chojin, actually. Historically, it's because actually that's before Zen, like from the Shingon, so I think from the 8th century, it was very very noble, and very, all the philosophers, the rich noble, and the monks were going to China to study the text, and they were invited, and missionaries were invited, and they started to bring the techniques, the cooking techniques, like the frying, like the, you know, and from that they started to bring tea. So it's funny, it's also already come from China, but at that time the tea ceremony was very sophisticated and gold thing, and yeah, it's only with Senno Rikyu, you know, that.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's important, but again, it's coming from yeah, the tea ceremony we know now is completely related to the Zen perception of creating an empty space in order to rise what's need to be, what's there, and contemplate it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Next question is: does mindful eating include ethics in any way? Now, I know this is becoming a bit difficult because you've separated, you know, the secular Kabat-Zinn mindfulness, and then the kind of the Zen tradition, but looking more from the Zen tradition. Because I mean, obviously you mentioned the Lankavatara Sutra, and it talks about, you know, don't eat meat under any circumstances. Don't even eat meat if it's touched other meat, and all that kind of stuff. So some often it does include ethics from the Buddhist tradition. But then, you know, Zen isn't like that, is it? It's not that strict, and you know, it's more flexible in a way. So I'm just wondering, from your tradition or your understanding, would mindful eating, how does mindful eating include ethics?
Um, yeah, you could say in that case mindful eating without mind. That could work. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, we are compost. We're compost. We're compost. So we just take what's come without judgment. So and I think the revolutionary posture of then is precisely that there is no dogma and there is no real forbiddenness. I feel it's really it's actually it could embrace other religion, and in some way other Buddhism is. I feel what's it's proposed here with the Shojin Yori is the or the Zen cooking, we'd say. I don't know how to say. Is the creation of the condition of arisement of self, and what will arise is none of the business of nobody, including the masters, but the conditions are. So I believe that we often focus, yes, on what each person should attain and should do and not do in order to attain, let's say, awakening. It's not a subject in Soto Zen. Awakening is not a subject, it's an experience. And it's an experience you are not aware of. And all what I feel the patriarch and the matriarch and the masters are giving us is the frame, the condition of arisement. So when we eat, we really eat. But mindful eating is not just about eating. Mindful eating is about shopping, is about talking, is about feeling in love with the earth, just not even realizing, but taking a pear and eating it, and let your body being grateful for that, not even, you know, intellectually being aware of it. So it's not, there is, it's a more of relaxation of observation than concentration on what we feel. And I feel also the way we cook, that's why, you know, like there is the 5 taste, the five color, and the 6th one, yeah? The texture, and also the oryoki, or if you do it in a plate, the emptiness, which is always there, because then it's not just you seeing the beauty, it's your eyes feeling the beauty. When you eat, the texture and the differences between acidity will make you embodied the wholeness of the world without you thinking about it. So it's more a whole relaxation of self.
Yeah, that's a brilliant answer. Thank you very much. Okay, next question is, it's about the benefits of mindful eating. We talked a bit about it a little bit already. So obviously on the secular side, we talked about the weight loss and blood pressure and, you know, reducing stress. And then you've also talked about insights. So from your perspective, especially from the Japanese Zen tradition perspective, what would be the benefits of mindful eating? I mean, we also talked about community. So all of those things, how would you think the tradition understands the benefits of mindful eating?
Well, first, I mean, you started to put like, and I just followed you on that, Buddhism and secularity. It's a tricky separation, because, for example, in the tradition, as you know, there is no differences in the religion thing and the secularity. It's the same practice. The only difference is like some are living in monasteries and some are living in the secular, but this is exactly the same practice. So there is no difference in the practice in the secular world. You know, so it's difficult to separate it. Then in terms of benefit, um, to live, to live fully, to just be not being aware that you're living, certainly not being aware that you're living, putting that on the side, getting relaxed about the meaning of life and less the meaning of awakening and nirvana and all that distractions, and just live. And when you eat, when you prepare, cooking, cook, when you talk with your neighbor, talk to your neighbor. Yeah. And I feel that because the whole practice is coming back through the body to what we do, and that's why the cooking practice is fantastic, because it's very easy to when maybe at the beginning it takes a little bit of effort, but when you it's really easy when you have, like, you know, potatoes, tomatoes, salada, you wash, you feel the water on your arm, you crack a little bit, you put vinegar, it's very easy to get out of your thoughts through the body, through the senses. So it's a very sensual practice, and through that, again, without being aware of it, you embody the reality that you're not separated, basically, that you are one ingredient of what you're cooking.
Yep, that's brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Okay, last question then. How do you personally practice mindful eating?
Well, I can't, this expression can't fit in my mind. How do I live fully my life in when I cook? How do I practice? Well, as I said, I'm fully present. I every time that I cook, I just try to do as much as I can with what I have. So for that, I have a little bit of organization, because if you want to be cooking in the practice of the situation, you need to have. Well, it's not that you need, but on the long run, it's nice to have already your dry ingredients. So basically, then what do? Is like I have a little methodologic when I want too much to be on recipe, to come back to what is needed to be cooked. Is like I'm checking, you know, I'm do zazen. So how do I practice? I do zazen first. Then I go outside, I feel the weather, I feel where is my heart. If I cook for somebody, I check who is the most vulnerable person, and I try to feel the heart of the most vulnerable person. And then inspiration, I open the fridge, I see what there is, and inspiration comes from the fact that I put a connection. So I would say, like, my practice is to always get myself out of the space which will receive the information of what I will cook. And also when I eat, because you're talking, yes, about eating, when I eat, I just the same. I just, you know, like don't reject the thoughts, but like really trying to be fully present, meaning like in Zazen, it's the same practice. So when I eat, I don't try to. Sometimes I can, of course, but it's not when I practice mindful eating. Yeah. Like I just try to give the space to my body to really nourish itself. Yeah. To the fullest.
Jon Kabat-Zinn, for example, when he's teaching mindful eating, he'll give people a raisin or a piece of chocolate and say, sit there and focus on the taste. Is that something? What do you think about that? Is that a good would that be a good practice, or is it too abstract?
Again, I think it's a very great practice for some reason that I think are therapeutical, or people were maybe too obsessed, or I don't know. No, this is not at all what we do. We as I said, we try to lose completely the focus, even the savers, you know, like the way the Tenzo cook, or the way, if you are your own Tenzo, which is mostly the case in urban city, you just have to be to pay attention, to have basically what's outside, and then you mechanically entered in a porosity of what's the reality, and the effect is consequent. In this practice, the point is just to let you be eaten by the effect of your food as you're eating it. Just and of course, if it's that the problem in our time, when we don't pay attention of what we eat, we're mostly are too salty or too sweet, and industrials understood that. That's also why the Zen cooking, as you know, also against regarding the Chinese dietary, really insist on having bitterness, and having spice, and having you know, acid, to create this balance also, which loosen up the avidity. So it's like, if you were talking about benefits, it's like, I don't know if it's a benefit in term, but it's an effect. It's a consequence that naturally we feel more nourished because we're not on a binary savors, which creates binary thoughts. And also the other practice we have before eating is the 5 contemplation. So the 5 contemplation, I would say, would be the closest practice that we have with traditional mindful eating in some way, because this is the only moment where we observe. We kind of think, okay, how come the food, what the efforts and all the energy which was necessary for the food, etc. But the rest, this close, okay, we eat, and the food is making it for us.
That's
We're
fantastic.
becoming the food, basically.
Yes, that's fantastic. I'm going to turn off the recording now.